Hello, I'm Sarah Doran.
And I'm David Brown.
And you are listening to the Radio Times podcast. We are making our predictions for Riverdale Season 3. David and I are here in our very own answer to Pop's chocolate shop. We call ourselves the Southwest London Serpents, I think, don't we, David?
We've just got our gang tattoos done, haven't we? We're all ready for action now, definitely.
Totally, but there's going to be no vigilante groups created this time around, all right?
Speak for yourself.
No dark circles in this place, you know. I've got my special eye cream that deals with dark circles.
Oh, good for you.
So
Excellent.
As we mentioned, we are big Riverdale fans here at radiotimes.com. Though you don't hear that much from us about it, so...
I think that should change.
Yeah, so David and I decided to do something about it. So, we've seen the first episode of Season 3, so if you are coming to this podcast, this is where you find us. So if more episodes have transpired, stick around.
Yes.
We're going to have a nice chat about the season as a whole, so don't be worried.
It made me feel very inferior, the first episode of Season 3, I have to be honest.
Why?
Just because of the sheer number of shirtless Archie scenes. I thought it was ridiculous. I mean, usually you get an episode of him like doing a press up or something like that. But he was driving the jalopy with no shirt on.
I did find that funny.
Yeah. How come that seatbelt would have chafed?
I was like, that can't be comfortable.
No, so he did that, and you saw him in bed, sweaty, shirtless.
That was very, very gratuitous. Yeah. I thought. I was like, oh, you know what you're doing here.
The worst bit was throwing the football shirtless with Reggie. Did you notice that?
Yeah, it was like, one of those 1960s at the beach movies. And it's like, oh gosh, Reggie, I don't know if we can go out for state this year. More like the state penitentiary, Archie.
I mean, I thought that the whole Southside Serpent Brigade, it'd become very homoerotic, the whole thing, hadn't it? And since when are all the town now serpents?
I know.
Everybody is like a member of the gang. There used to be this fringe group, and now Cheryl's a serpent, Betty's a serpent, Tony's a serpent. They're all involved, and there's nobody actually in school doing any work. Have you noticed that? Nobody does any school work at all.
It's quite amusing. So they're heading for their junior year. I think they've not quite got to senior year yet. So junior year, for anyone who's listening in the UK, is like your second last year of secondary school.
So they're like 15, basically. Is that what we're supposed to think? They're 15 years old?
No, I think they're 16 or 17. It's not like GCSE. Yeah, it's like lower sixth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right. So it's going to be an interesting junior year for Archie because he's going to spend it in jail. In juvie.
Yeah. How long do we think he's going to be in jail for? I think they're going to get half a season out of him being in jail.
Well, for those who are coming in and might need a quick recap, we know Archie was framed for murder at the end of Season 2.
Yeah.
Season 3 kicked off with his trial and he couldn't get quite off the hook. But what I thought was quite interesting was the jury couldn't decide. It was going to be out. It was a mistrial. They were going to have to do it all again. And Archie, rather than, say, oh, this is good for me, said, oh no, I won't put my family and friends through all of this because let's face it, it'll make for a much better teen drama if I'm in juvenile hall.
I took the rap.
Yeah, so...
With his odd bow tie.
I know.
His courtroom bow tie.
It's a bit like the 11th Doctor dropped in.
Yeah, I didn't really understand. And also, is it a bit kind of legally weird to have your mum as your lawyer?
That's what I thought. I didn't think there was any way she would be allowed to represent him at all. Because in other dramas I've seen, say 13 Reasons Why, for example, there was a character who was supposed to be in a trial there, and his mother was a lawyer for the prosecution, I think, or the defence, one or the other. I mean, you are one or the other in a trial, aren't you? And she couldn't be involved because of him.
No.
So... I'm sorry. I love you, Molly Ringwald.
Yes.
But no.
And the mum from Kindergarten Cop was the opposing lawyer, Penelope Ann Miller. So she was prosecuting, and 16 Candles, Molly Ringwald being Archie's defence.
I do love Riverdale's cameos.
Yeah.
They have some great ones. I really hope they have some good ones lined up for this series as well. We are, of course, going to make our predictions for what's going to happen.
Yeah.
David, you are like the Mystic Meg of Riverdale. You're working this out, you know. So your first prediction, and one I think which might have some weight to it now that we've seen the first episode, is that Archie will spend time in jail and threaten to expose Hiram's prison plans from the inside.
Well, that's what Hiram wants to do, isn't it? He wants to open a prison and he wants to open a bordello. They seem to be his two things. He's promised a bordello to Cheryl's mum and a prison, to be in the town. So presumably we'll see lots of yard scenes, presumably with Archie working out
completely
all the time. Topless, while kind of getting the lowdown on the nefarious schemes of Hiram. That's got to happen, surely.
Oh, easily.
And then he'll come out midway through the season, rally the troops and take down Hiram. Although I don't really understand. I thought Hiram was the second in command, and that Hermione was the godmother.
And suddenly it's all reversed, because in that episode, of course, where the killing took place of the guy who Archie went on trial for murder, it was Hermione who met him at the end and said, "You've passed the test."
Have they forgotten that then now? Because
I don't know.
The power seems to have shifted back towards Hiram.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting, because we did see Hermione is a bit fragile at the moment. She's saying to Ronnie that, I'd help you, but I'm disposable and you're not.
Yeah.
That's like, well, since when?
He seems to have had a bit of a character shift since the last season.
Yes. Yeah. Speaking of Hermione and Ronnie, you think Ronnie's going to get out of her depth running that speakeasy at Pops, don't you?
I think so. Yeah, but I think that there will be trouble there, because they both seem to be, mother and daughter are both working at Pops, aren't they? So I think she's going to have work-based drama while all the time campaigning to get Archie out of jail. I mean, the connections
between Archie's family and Ronnie's family, of course, run deep.
Yes.
Because Hermione and Fred have a bit of history.
Yeah.
And we're wondering if perhaps history could repeat itself this season.
Well, we've already seen Fred punch Hiram, haven't we, in this season? Fred always seems like he's on the brink of death.
I know.
I mean, Luke Perry was about 65 when he was on Beverly Hills 90210. Now, he's now obviously like in defying death by being in his hundreds or whatever. Yeah. But he did manage to get a good punch in. So I wonder whether he will inflame tensions further by kind of getting involved with Hermione again.
I know, because I think we can tell at this stage that the likelihood of Archie's parents getting back together is like entirely slim. I don't think they could get Molly Ringwald in for that many episodes. To be perfectly honest,
I can't see why they were together in the first place. They just don't seem like they have any chemistry at all.
Well, they had to produce a boy who would, be tried for murder, but also try and launch a successful music career.
Yes, that's right. So you've got to kind of
maybe he'll get the guitar back on the inside, do a bit of Johnny Cash, Folsom Prison Blues.
Jailhouse Rock,
Riverdale Prison Blues.
Yeah, that would. That's right. Yeah.
It's like, I hurt myself today.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see that.
So I need to take my top off and show you my injury.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Back in Riverdale, though, while all this is going on, you mentioned that everyone seems like they're a serpent now.
Yeah.
Juggy and Betty are very much, your king and queen.
She said that no Dark Betty this season. Did you read that? She's not going to get the black wig out again. I'm glad of that, actually, because it left me a bit creeped out when she used
I wasn't sure what it was all about, to be perfectly honest.
I wasn't mad
Initially,
on it.
In season 1, when she was kind of bringing about Dark Betty, I was thinking, is there some sort of psychological thing that's giving her this? Could we be about to examine something really interesting, like a mental health issue or something like that? And it turned out to be, no, she's just a bit kinky.
Yeah, but I think perhaps they are going to be exploring her mental health in this season, because the cliffhanger scene of the levitating babies, and a lot of people said, could this be signs that there's going to be a Sabrina crossover? We're kind of left the everyday behind and entering the realm of the supernatural. But she might be just out of her head on Adderall.
I know. I will say that for me, in Happy Days, they jumped the shark. Yeah. I think in Riverdale, they jumped the spark.
Yeah, that's true.
Those babies levitating over the fire. Yeah. I just was like, what is going on here?
Well, I think it's all in her head. And I can't see that they're just going to abandon rationality forever.
No,
there's going to be an explanation for that.
I need to see Spunky Alice back. This calm, on the farm Alice with Polly kind of standing over, looking like a child of the corn.
There seems to be like a very strong ritualistic element to the season, because you've got the farm stuff and the satanic ritual there. What seems to be, and then also the storyline with Dilton.
Dilton Doily and the Gargoyle King.
I mean, Roberto Sacasa has said it's going to be a gnarly season. And maybe the Gargoyle King, from pictures we've seen, looks like it's kind of tree-like and branches. So who knows? But it did seem a little bit True Detective season 1, or especially the way that they were posed at the end, Dilton and his friend. That was all a bit strange.
We mentioned the possibility of a Sabrina crossover. Now, everybody is talking about this, but there are some complications to this, aren't there? Because Sabrina is a purely Netflix show.
That's right.
It is like the comic, which I know you've read in detail, was written by Roberto Aguirre Sacasa, so the creator of Riverdale, and he has created this series, but Riverdale's a CW show, and that just happens to be on Netflix in the UK. So
usually on American TV, if there's a crossover, they have to be on the same network. internetwork crossovers, the most notorious of which, Murder, She Wrote and Magnum PI. If you've not seen it, seek it out. But very rarely do they cross over from one broadcaster to another. So I don't know if you remember when Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel, when Angel went off onto another channel, they had a lot of trouble when they wanted to kind of bring Sarah Michelle Gellar onto Angel and vice versa. And only at the very end of Buffy did David Boreanaz make an appearance on Buffy. They got special dispensation to do it. So I don't know whether they'd be able to pull it off. And also, from what I've seen of Sabrina, it seems like it's not really set at the same time as Riverdale, even though the two towns are geographically next to each other.
Yeah, a little bit different, I think. Yeah. And I think you'd also struggle with the kind of... Sabrina's quite dark, and I mean really dark. Yeah. And I don't know how it would interact. And like we mentioned, I think it's in the comics, isn't it? Miss Grundy is the connection between Sabrina's world and Betty and Ronnie's world. And now that Miss Grundy's gone, I'm sure they could come up with some other storyline to do it, but I don't think we'd be likely to see it in season 3.
Well, in Chilling Adventures of Sabrina the comic, you do get Betty and Veronica going to Greendale, which is where Sabrina is, and also Jughead makes a cameo appearance as well. But obviously, that's not going to happen in Sabrina. I think that's just going to be an entity by itself.
Yeah.
There are rumours, aren't there, that Riverdale is going to get a spin-off of its own anyway.
Yes.
So that could happen, and we won't need a crossover.
No. Back to season 3. We will, of course, like we mentioned earlier, have some new characters coming in because we're finally going to meet Jughead's mum and sister, Jellybean.
That's right, yeah. Now, I'm also kind of reading another Archie horror comic called Jughead the Hunger, in which it turns out that the Jones family are actually a family of werewolves. And Jellybean is a werewolf, as is Jughead in that series. So if they were to kind of leave real life behind, then who knows? Perhaps they could have lupine tendencies.
Oh, amazing. That would be incredible.
Yeah.
Speaking though of, you mentioned the Jones family, we're going to get a flashback episode this series, and we're going to see FP, Alice, Hiram.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember everybody's parents' names. Yeah. All the mums and dads.
Yes.
In their junior years.
Yeah.
I'm quite curious about this because
played by the current young cast.
Yeah, played by the current cast. Bar Hiram, who's being played by his real life son.
That's right. Yeah.
Which is going to be incredible.
I've just seen some pictures of it today. Actually, I think Entertainment Weekly have got some exclusive pics, and I think it's called The Midnight Club, the episode, and the little teasy comic strip style picture they've got of it is almost Breakfast Club style.
Oh, wow.
I wondered whether it was going to be a bit Stranger Things, because the glasses they're wearing are almost like what Barb wears in Stranger Things. But I think they're going for a John Hughes Breakfast Club style vibe, so that should be quite funny. And who knows, that might... we're promised another musical episode, so perhaps they'll do a few routines in it as well.
Well, you never know. I would imagine we would see amazing routines at Cheryl's mother's bordello, should it open.
Yeah,
could you imagine, like,
definitely.
Moulin Rouge style?
Yeah.
Moulin Riverdale.
Yeah, which ends abruptly when Cheryl turns up with her crossbow.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Let's segue into that.
Yeah.
That was all a bit Hunger Games, wasn't it?
I know, she is now Katniss.
Cheryl is now Katniss, standing on her truck. Cheryl never misses, says Juggy.
She fired the crossbow last season, didn't she? Once when she came to Jughead's aid, I think.
Yeah, near the.
In season
and she
2.
threatened the Black Hood with it as well.
That's right, yeah. But her have you noticed that Cheryl's lipstick and her makeup is the most kind of pristine of everybody on the programme? She steals every scene she's in my opinion. And we do wonder if Cheryl and Tony might become the most popular couple on the show this year. Yeah, I ship those two. I think that they're really, really good. Isn't it? It's Choney, isn't it? Is that? Yeah, that's right. I think it's Choney. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, lovely commenters. Yeah, they are. Yeah, they're very good. And there was a hint, wasn't there, last season that something might be happening with Josie, but she seems to be with Reggie now, doesn't she? Yeah. Will she go back to her music this series? Will we see more of it? She only does cover versions. I don't know why she's some big hit, Josie and the Pussycats. She's just like a tribute act. Don't diss Josie and the Pussycats. Those headbands, David. Hair bands. That's what I'm called. Speaking of people we ship, there's some interesting possible new couples coming up. We've seen Moose and Kevin make a pact to lose their virginity. And they haven't given themselves very long, have they? They've said Halloween as their cut-off point. So if nothing's happened relationship-wise for the two of them outside of the pairing, then they're going to get together by Halloween. I watched this with my other half, and he turned around and he said,
Midge is barely dead a few months.
Yeah, I know.
What's going on?
Yeah.
You know, poor old Midge. And then FP and Alice, who I think we all agree are a bit like Endgame, as they say.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's very charismatic, isn't he, FP? I was watching Scream again at the weekend, and of course he's the killer in Scream, or one of the killers in Scream.
Spoiler alert!
Well, spoiler alert for a 20-year-old movie. But yeah, I think he's great. FP. I'm glad. I like to see the oldies get a bit more screen time.
Yeah,
really.
And at the end of that first episode of season 3, they were sitting in the living room and they were all saying, "Oh yeah, we're gonna get Hiram like together." Yeah, so I really like the idea of these like, you know, anarchy parents. Actually, maybe we were saying earlier there'd be no dark circle this year. There might well be. Yes. It might be the oldies.
The oldies. Well, I think it's an important part of the show because tweenies like Riverdale, but you've got to have all these nostalgic Brat Pack kind of elements in there to appeal to the dads and mums like me, I think, because it's very important that we get our little nostalgia blast. Yeah,
and I mean, it is such a phenomenon, isn't it, Riverdale?
Yeah.
Like, the way it's come from nothing and almost very suddenly filled the gap that shows like The OC and One Tree Hill would have filled many years ago. It had that slight kind of Gossip Girly feel to it at one stage as well.
Yeah, but it's got a bit of darkness to it as well, like and they do take their inspiration from pre-existing things, like when Miss Grundy was killed off in season 2. She was killed off in a very Michael Myers Halloween type way, and they also did a little homage to Twin Peaks last season, where I can't remember who it was. Somebody climbed over the sofa just like Bob did in Twin Peaks, and this season they've got the True Detective thing going on. So I think they love their gothic kind of spin on things. And if you look at the comics, Afterlife with Archie, which is like a kind of zombie apocalypse type storyline, I wouldn't mind them doing something like that. And also, I mean, I wonder whether they're going to be lining up Betty for a bit of trouble, because if you've read the main Archie line, you'll know that Betty, albeit temporarily, loses the use of her legs after a car accident. So I wonder whether they might be putting some jeopardy like that her way. Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
We'll have to don our leather Southwest London surfing jackets and get our sleuthing caps on. Maybe we can write about this in the blue and gold.
I think so, yeah. We need to go and hang out with the ghoulies.
Exactly. Of course, if you enjoy Riverdale and you've got your own theories on what's going to happen in season 3, or your own thoughts about anything we've mentioned in this podcast, do leave a comment in the box below if you're listening to us on YouTube. And of course, keep watching and head over to radiotimes.com for all the latest TV and entertainment news on demand, live TV, as it happens. We've got it. Until next time, and hopefully another lovely long Riverdale chat we'll get to some point down the line, maybe mid-season.
Yeah, brilliant.
I've been Sarah Doran.
And I've been David Brown.
Thank you so much for listening, and goodbye.